We said $200,000 in December of 2024. And yes, I still think it's in play. What we will need in order for that to happen is to see this strong acceleration of ETF flows that I predict will happen. I think we could get $10 to $20 billion in flows in Q4 alone. If we see that and reasonable corporate and government buying, I think 200,000 is a reach, but still very much possible by the end of the year. Well, to be clear, I think both ETH and Solana are going to be extraordinarily successful. I think ETH, as you mentioned, has the leading market share in stablecoins and indeed in the tokenized space. It has huge benefits from decentralization, has huge penetration and use, massive developer network. I own a lot of ETH and I'm very bullish on where it's going.
The debasement trade has gone mainstream. What started as a fringe idea about fiat money losing value is now the biggest narrative on Wall Street, and it's fueling a surge in both Bitcoin and gold. Matt Hougan says investors are waking up to the simple math. Governments can't stop printing, and every new dollar, euro, or yen created chips away at purchasing power. The response is predictable. Institutions and individuals alike are rotating into assets that can't be printed. So far, Bitcoin and gold are leading that charge. Hougan says this momentum could build through the rest of the year, especially as inflation fears and political uncertainty grow. But here's the twist: it's not just a Bitcoin story anymore. Traditional finance investors are now watching two parallel narratives unfold. Bitcoin is cementing its place as digital gold, a store of value outside the system. Meanwhile, Ethereum and Solana are capturing institutional attention for something else entirely: the rise of stablecoins and asset tokenization. Ethereum, Hougan notes, dominates that space. It hosts the majority of tokenized assets and stablecoins backed by a deep developer base and proven decentralization. Solana, by contrast, is the high-speed contender, built for throughput capable of near-instant settlement. For institutions envisioning real-time trading, instant clearing, and on-chain finance, that's a game-changer. If Ethereum ETFs keep pulling in capital and Solana ETPs launch soon, Hougan believes the entire crypto sector could ride a powerful second wave of adoption, one driven not by speculation but by utility and trust. If you found value in this breakdown, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with other investors who are paying attention. We're here to keep bringing you sharp analysis and voices that actually understand what's unfolding. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, I think there are two things that are going on. One is that the debasement trade has become the hottest trade on Wall Street, right? JP Morgan is writing about it. Everyone is suddenly concerned about fiat currencies. And so they all want to get exposure to the two best plays in that space, which are Bitcoin and gold. For what it's worth, I think that fact accelerates into the end of the year. One thing people don't think of much is that when institutions and financial advisors sit down with their clients at the end of the year, they want to show them that they had the hottest trade of the year. Last year, they wanted to show them that they owned NVIDIA. This year, they're going to want to show them that they own Bitcoin and gold. And so I think that's going to drive additional interest. The second thing that's driving results is just flows into Bitcoin ETFs. We've seen $3 billion in flows in the first 5 trading days of October. That's nearly a record for a 5-day period. We think Bitcoin ETFs are going to set a record for flows in Q4. We're seeing Morgan Stanley and other wirehouses coming into the space. So I'm really excited about that. Flows in the debasement trade, put them together, and Bitcoin's at 125 and going higher. We said $200,000 in December of 2024. And yes, I still think it's in play. What we will need in order for that to happen is to see this strong acceleration of ETF flows that I predict will happen. I think we could get $10 to $20 billion in flows in Q4 alone. If we see that and reasonable corporate and government buying, I think 200,000 is a reach, but still very much possible by the end of the year. I don't think it's Bitcoin pulling it along. In fact, based on the conversations I'm having with financial advisors and institutions, they've now realized that there are two major trades in crypto. There's Bitcoin as digital gold, and there's Ethereum and Solana as platform for stablecoin and tokenization. I'll say with my TradFi audience, that stablecoin and tokenization story is almost stronger than the Bitcoin story alone. Certainly on a relative market cap perspective, I think we're going to see very strong flows into Ethereum ETFs. I think we may see extremely strong throws if we see Solana ETPs launch in the next few weeks, which I expect. Wall Street is waking up to this stablecoin and tokenization idea. I don't think it's Bitcoin only. We now have two big stories in crypto, and that makes the whole space much stronger. Well, to be clear, I think both ETH and Solana are going to be extraordinarily successful. I think ETH, as you mentioned, has the leading market share in stablecoins and indeed in the tokenized space. It has huge benefits from decentralization, has huge penetration and use, massive developer network. I own a lot of ETH, and I'm very bullish on where it's going. I think what I said was Solana is the new Wall Street. By that, I meant that the architecture of Solana is designed to facilitate, sort of instant transactions in the view of the beholder, right? Sort of settlement, not quite settlement, but processing within 400 milliseconds, confirmation in 2 seconds. That is the kind of speed that Wall Street needs. I think both will be successful. I think the wrong play for investors right now is to try to pick and choose a winner in the stablecoin and tokenization space. The right play is to invest broadly in that space and be happy whoever wins. One thing crypto loves to do is to go all in on one asset. It's always and only Solana. I think the easier play right now is just to hold both ETH and Solana. The space is big enough to accommodate two, and we're talking about many trillions of dollars of market opportunity. I think they'll both do really well. The thing I'd shout out for Solana is it's tiny, right? The thing we forget about Solana is it's 1/25th the size of Bitcoin. And so even a little bit of interest in Solana from traditional investors could really increase that price. You could see a doubling or a tripling of price if it becomes a favored asset amongst TradFi. That does make it unique from Ethereum, which is, of course, about 5 times bigger.
Matt Hougan says the SEC could approve Solana exchange-traded products within weeks, and that decision might light a spark across the crypto market. Once approved, these ETPs would open the door for traditional investors to gain Solana exposure directly through regulated channels. But more importantly, they'd kick off a wave of education and marketing from firms like Bitwise, roadshows, analyst briefings, and mainstream coverage that would put Solana in front of a much wider audience. Hougan says Solana's current setup looks unusually strong. 3 tailwinds are lining up: the potential ETF approval, solid leadership and branding from its ecosystem companies, and the booming narrative around stablecoins and tokenization. At a little over $100 billion in market cap, Solana still has plenty of room to grow. Even a small influx of institutional money could move the needle significantly. Still, Hougan doesn't ignore the risks. Ethereum remains the clear leader in decentralized finance, stablecoin, and tokenized assets with unmatched network effects. Some investors also haven't forgotten Solana's past issues: network outages, scalability hiccups, and the lingering perception that parts of its ecosystem attract speculative memecoins. But if the network continues to mature and ETP approval arrives on schedule, Hougan believes Solana could be entering its strongest phase yet. Let's get back to the interview.
If you just look at the sort of calendar of SEC time-based approvals, you would think we are a few weeks away from potentially seeing those ETPs. I think that's going to be big in a number of ways. One, it's just an access vehicle, but two, it means that firms like Bitwise and others that are launching will be out there doing meetings with people, educating them about Solana. When I look at Solana right now, I think it's one of the best setups for a crypto asset that I've seen in my 8 years of being in this space full time. You have a wave of ETFs potentially launching. You have really strong treasury companies led by charismatic leaders that are pushing the narrative. You have the stablecoin and tokenization play that people are very excited about. When you put those 3 things together against an asset that, again, is only a little over $100 billion in size, that's a pretty exciting setup. So I'm very optimistic for Solana for the next few months.
That's the bull case for Solana. Are there any challenges we need to watch out for?
Yeah, sure. It's not the dominant player in this space. Again, Ethereum has a larger market share. Some people are skeptical of it because of the meme coin overhang and the view that it's oriented around that space. It has historically run into technical issues. So there are always risks in every investment. But again, in 8 years, I'm not sure I've seen a setup that's as clean as this, and I'm really excited. So I think layer 1 thinking from institutions would do that. Layer 2 thinking would say that prove that it can handle the actual throughput required to do mass tokenization on chain. So I actually find it a very useful example. And as people get their hands around that and they start to see other people embrace it, I think they'll come to that realization. A story as old as time is new technologies first being used for slightly goofy things. People criticize the internet in the earlier days for its primary uses, but look where we are now. I think people will make that realization in Solana. So the initial response during the heart of the meme coin mania was to bucket Solana in that space. But I think people now realize that that was just a great proof case of the technology's throughput. I think it's gone from a negative to a positive, and I think Wall Street will realize that as well. I mean, we're very excited. We're working to get our index fund uplisted into an ETP. Hopefully that will happen. I think that if it does, that will be a great tool for investors. The other place that I'm spending a lot of time thinking about is what is, again, the second derivative of a massive explosion in people using stablecoins and tokenized assets. And I think the answer there is DeFi. If you have suddenly 1 billion people that are familiar with wallets and how they work, what percentage of them will move into the DeFi category? I think a very high percentage. So I think if you look at what's going on at something like Aave with the huge spike in TVL, I think that's just a tiny down payment on where that protocol could be going. I think people haven't warmed up to how much stablecoins and tokenization will drag along the DeFi space. Given its small size, I'm very excited about that space as well. I think it's like more like a DeFi quadrennial. It's like a period of years for DeFi. I think DeFi, it will eventually be 10, 20, 30 times bigger than it is today. Again, imagine a world where 1 billion plus people are using crypto wallets every day for stable coins or to access tokenized stocks. In that world, what percentage of them are borrowing, lending, staking, doing derivative work? It's not zero. And if it's 10%, that's a massive explosion of DeFi uses. I just think that space is lined up well for a many-year bull market. It's not clear exactly which protocols, if they already exist, if new ones will launch, but I wouldn't be short DeFi if you are bullish on stablecoins and tokenization. I think that's missing the forest for the trees. Yeah, look, it's a network effect market. So just look at the largest ones right now. Those are the easiest bets to make, but it's also a very dynamic and early market. So I wouldn't by any means buy something and then go away for 5 years and look back and see if you got the winner. I think this is a space where you want to diversify, own maybe the 5 or 10 largest asset and periodically update your view, because a hyperliquid can come out of nowhere with a great design and a great community and become systematically important. But most crypto investors burnt by the aftermath of DeFi summer have taken their DeFi allocations down to zero. I suspect that that's the wrong place to be given where this market is going.
Momentum in the digital asset space is no longer about hype, it's about positioning. What's unfolding is a quiet restructuring of how money, credit, and ownership operate. Bitcoin has matured into a form of monetary insurance, a counterbalance to the expanding supply of fiat. Ethereum, meanwhile, has evolved into the financial backbone of tokenized value, and Solana is carving out a role as the infrastructure for speed and scalability. Together, they represent 3 distinct but converging fronts of a larger transformation: the shift from analog finance to programmable money. Institutional adoption isn't coming, it's already underway, just moving through regulated doors instead of speculative corners. Each ETF approval, each new layer of tokenized assets adds legitimacy and liquidity to what used to be considered fringe technology. Yet beneath the excitement lies a bigger implication. If traditional finance integrates blockchain at scale, the very definition of risk-free assets may change. What was once parked in treasuries might soon flow into digital instruments that settle instantly and operate globally. The deeper question now is whether legacy systems can adapt to this pace of innovation, or whether they'll be forced to follow a new standard set not by policy, but by code. So stay tuned. If you're into real data-backed takes on the financial system, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the weekly updates. Thank you for the support, and I hope you enjoy the video.